All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're looking at Germany between 1945 and 1961.
A really pivotal time.
Yeah, really fascinating stuff. We've got a great mix of sources for this one: videos, educational materials, even some personal documents. It's going to give us a real feel for what it was like.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. You know, going through these sources, I was really struck by the sheer scale of the challenges Germany faced after World War II.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking devastation on every level: physical, political, economic.
absolutely. 1945, Germany is in ruins, cities bombed out, millions dead.
And on top of all that, you have millions of Germans, the Heimatvertriebene, being expelled from former German territories.
Forced from their homes, trying to rebuild their lives in a country that's, well, barely even a country anymore.
Exactly. And then you've got the division of Germany into these 4 occupation zones, each controlled by one of the Allied powers:
Mhm.
the U.S., USSR, Great Britain, and France.
Right, and from the start, there's this underlying tension, this mistrust between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union.
It's like the seeds of the Cold War are already being sown right there.
Yeah, you can really see it in the documents you sent over, disagreements over how to rebuild Germany, what kind of government it should have, what its future role in Europe would be.
The Western Allies are pushing for democracy and a free market economy.
Well, the Soviets want a communist system, a one-party state.
And it's not just about economics, is it?
No, it's about ideology. It's about security. The West is terrified of communism spreading across Europe, creating this domino effect.
The Truman Doctrine really highlights that fear, doesn't it?
Hmm.
The U.S. pledging to support any country threatened by communist expansion.
Absolutely. And then you have the Marshall Plan, billions of dollars pumped into rebuilding Western Europe.
A massive undertaking.
It was. And what's interesting is the plan was actually offered to all European countries, including those under Soviet control.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, but Stalin saw it as a threat, a way for the U.S. to exert influence in Eastern Europe, so he blocked it.
So the Soviets, they're tightening their grip on Eastern Europe. The U.S. is pushing back. And Germany is right in the middle of it all.
Like a pawn in this giant geopolitical chess game.
And then, in 1948, things escalate dramatically with the Berlin blockade.
A real turning point.
Tell us about that.
Well, the Western Allies introduce a new currency in West Germany, the Deutschmark.
And the Soviets see this as a direct challenge.
Exactly. They respond by cutting off all land access to West Berlin.
Basically, they're trying to starve the city into submission.
In a way, yes. Food, fuel, medicine, everything had to be brought in by air.
The Berlin airlift. What an incredible operation.
For almost a year, cargo planes landed around the clock, keeping West Berlin supplied. It was a huge logistical challenge, but it showed the Soviets that the West wouldn't back down.
A real test of wills.
It was. And ultimately, the blockade failed. But it had a lasting impact. It hardened the divisions between East and West and made it clear that Germany would be a focal point of the Cold War for years to come.
So by 1949, we have 2 German states. The Federal Republic in the West, a democracy aligned with the West.
And the German Democratic Republic in the East, a communist state under Soviet influence.
2 Germanys, 2 very different paths. And this is just the beginning.
Yeah, 2 Germanys, completely different paths. It's really it's fascinating to see how they each deal with the legacy of the Nazi regime.
Right, the denazification process. We've got some really interesting documents on that.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, punishing the top Nazis, the Nuremberg trials and all that. It's about trying to root out this ideology that had permeated, German society for over a decade.
A huge challenge, right? How do you even begin to deprogram an entire nation?
Exactly. And the approaches taken by East and West Germany were quite different.
Well, yeah, in the West, you had these efforts to remove former Nazis from positions of power, to kind of, rebuild the justice system, the education system.
And there's this emphasis on individual responsibility, on coming to terms with the past.
Which is, it's admirable. But at the same time, I mean, looking at some of these personal accounts, you see that it was also a very, very difficult and often painful process.
Absolutely. And it wasn't always successful. I mean, there were definitely cases where people who had been involved with the Nazi regime managed to escape accountability.
Right, they slipped through the cracks.
Yeah. And then in the East, It's a whole different story. The communist regime basically uses the Nazi past as a way to legitimize their own rule.
They're saying we're the real anti-fascists, trust us.
Exactly. And they use it to justify, their own repressive measures, the Stasi, the secret police.
It's like they're replacing one totalitarian regime with another.
In a way, yes, but with this added layer of ideology, this Marxist-Leninist ideology that's supposed to be the answer to all of Germany's problems.
Right. And meanwhile, people are living in this climate of fear and suspicion. I mean, you've got neighbors informing on neighbors, people afraid to speak their minds.
Absolutely. And economically, it's a struggle. East Germany's saddled with these huge reparations payments to the Soviet Union.
While West Germany is experiencing the Wirschaftswunder, the economic miracle.
Yeah, fueled by the Marshall Plan, a focus on exports, free market principles.
So you have this growing disparity between the two Germanys.
Which, of course, leads to more and more people trying to escape from east to west.
And eventually it leads to the ultimate symbol of division, the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
The Berlin Wall. It's hard to imagine, a city literally divided, a concrete barrier running right through it.
Yeah, for almost 30 years, it stood as this stark reminder of the Cold War, the division of Europe, the ideological battle between East and West.
And it wasn't just a symbol, was it? It
Yeah.
had a very real impact on the lives of millions of people.
Absolutely. Families separated, loved ones unable to see each other. And for those living in East Germany, the wall represented a very real barrier to freedom.
Yeah. And yet, despite all of that, I mean, looking at these documents, these personal accounts, you see this incredible resilience, this determination to live, to love, to create, even in the face of such oppression.
It's really quite remarkable. I mean, in West Germany, you see this flourishing of art and literature. Authors like Günter Grass, Heinrich Bull, they're grappling with the legacy of the war, the challenges of rebuilding, the anxieties of the Cold War.
And in their work, you can see this search for identity, this questioning of what it means to be German in this new post-war world.
Exactly. And meanwhile, in East Germany, despite the censorship, despite the constant surveillance, you still see these glimmers of dissent, of creative expression.
Yeah, the documents you sent about the East German art scene, they were really fascinating. I mean, some of it is obviously propaganda, but there are these subtle critiques of the regime, these explorations of personal themes that somehow manage to slip past the censors.
It's a testament to the power of art, the need to express oneself, even in the most difficult of circumstances. And it's not just art. People found ways to connect with each other, to build communities, to resist in small ways.
It's inspiring, isn't it, to see that even in a system that was designed to control every aspect of life, the human spirit still found a way to shine through.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from this deep dive, this look at Germany between 1945 and 1961. Yes, it was a time of division, of hardship, of political turmoil, but it was also a time of incredible resilience, of creativity, of the human spirit finding a way to overcome even the most daunting obstacles.
And those themes of resilience, of the struggle for freedom, they continue to resonate today, don't they? I mean, we see them in conflicts all over the world, in the fight for human rights and the everyday struggles of people trying to build a better life for themselves and their families.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's so important to study history, to learn from the past, to understand the forces that have shaped our world.
Well said. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the ruins of post-war Germany to the construction of the Berlin Wall, from the clash of ideologies to the personal stories of those who lived through these tumultuous times. I hope you found it as insightful as I did.
Me too.
And if you did, please do us a favor and like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We love hearing from you. Until next time.